Defined versus empirical approaches. Oftentimes, in discussions around the application of agile techniques, we compare agility to something that we might call waterfall or waterfallish. That term waterfall has become the standard reference when we're talking about a particular environment that I would now like to instead refer to as a defined environment. And when we talk about agility, for this conversation, I would prefer that we use the more general term, an empirical environment. Defined versus empirical. Let's look at the differences. In a defined environment, you would expect more command and control. Because in a defined environment, there's a high degree of expectation of great definition. And we want to keep things in control so that the plans that we put together will carry out as expected. And that's another point in a defined environment. We invest more heavily in planning, and we even evaluate things like our level of confidence in achieving the expected outcome from that plan. We enforce the plan. Sometimes, even in the face of changing conditions, in some environments, the plan itself has such value that it tends to supersede all other considerations. And yet, we know that sometimes changes must come about. So, you will see the use of something like change control. There's a process involved with bringing any type of change to the project work. Now, compare that with something that's more empirical. In an empirical environment, we expect to learn things as we proceed. We recognize that we don't know everything. We do not have all the answers. And we may very well plan, but we also plan for changes. Changes in the requirements, changes in the work environment, changes in the marketplace. We expect those things to happen. So let's build an environment where we can account for the possibility of change coming to us. Not only do we plan and expect for changes, we embrace change. We welcome change. We believe that change is a good thing because change is the opportunity for us to make those adjustments in response to all those other environmental changes that might be going on. We don't forge ahead just because the plan said so. We realize we might have to make some changes. Let's welcome that. And instead of seeing more command and control behaviors, you'll see more inspect and adapt behaviors, always looking for opportunities to improve on the product, to improve on the work environment, to improve on the people, to improve on the processes that we're using. Now, if we look at a little bit of anthropomorphism, this is where we might apply a human characteristic to a non-human entity. We could consider these differences defined in empirical as it might apply in the animal kingdom. Now, I got this story from Ken Schwaber many years ago when I took his Certified Scrum Master class, and I've kept it because it holds a lot of power for me in understanding these differences. And Ken called this idea the courage of geese. Now, geese don't have courage, right? This is an anthropomorphism. But he compared geese with the swallows of Capistrano, two different migratory birds. The swallows of Capistrano, pretty little birds that migrate between South America and California. And historically, at least, every year, tourists and scientists would flock to San Juan Capistrano, again, cute little town between San Diego and Los Angeles, on the 3 to 5 days around which the swallows of Capistrano would be expected to return from South America. High degree of confidence that they would show up. They could calculate ahead of time by looking at the lunar calendar when to expect these birds will arrive. And scientists have also shown through tagging that these birds are actually looking for the same nest they used the year before. A very defined approach to delivering their project work. Now compare that with Canada geese. Canada geese also migrate, but their plans are a little more loosely defined. They're not trying to find a specific longitude and latitude on a specific day. No, they're trying to find a place that's safe, that's warm, and has food. Right? See the difference? more goal-oriented. And they don't know the solution to those three objectives when they start. But that doesn't keep them from beginning anyway. Venturing into the unknown, this is where the courage comes in. Starting out, inspecting and adapting day by day, week by week. Have we met these three expectations yet? And where they end up may very well be different at a different time than when they ended up the year before. Now, if you would allow me, I'll quote something from Uganaki and Ray, and you can post in the comments if I got that pronunciation wrong. But they kind of summarize this difference between defined and empirical approaches with some advice on how to choose. What they say is that it's typical, and this is a direct quote, to adopt the defined, or also known as the theoretical, modeling approach when the underlying mechanisms by which a process operates are reasonably well understood. When the process is too complicated for the defined approach, the empirical approach is the appropriate choice. And because our world is getting more and more complicated, it seems to make sense that the agile movement is more and more prevalent and influencing how businesses operate. Thanks for your time.